I am so excited. So excited for today. I've been waiting for this for some time. So, if you're live or if you're watching the recording, I'm just so pleased that you took time to be here with us today. You're going to meet someone who's just a really cool individual. And I'm thrilled to have Susan Hazel Rich with us today. I met her I was going to say a couple weeks ago, but it's been longer than that, in Palm Springs at Alt Summit, and was totally mesmerized by her products. And you know how some people just draw you in with their products, but also just their energy. And that was Susan. So, as we all know, finding information on people today is really easy. So I'm not going to do a bio on Susan. When it's all over with, you can look at her website, which I hope and encourage you to do. Look at her LinkedIn profile and connect with her and just kind of find out a little bit more about her in that space. But she's going to talk about a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So if you have questions or anything, please put those in the section and we will pull those and talk about them. But I just want you to meet the darling, pull this up here, Susan Rich, because she is an awesome person and you are so going to enjoy getting to know her. So Miss Susan, come on stage.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Debbie.
Oh, so excited to have. I always do this. I always forget to take off rings and jewelry when I'm talking, and then it hits on the computer and stuff. So apologies for that, y'all. So like I said, I'm going to be monitoring the space here, and then I'll also monitor on my phone for others and turn this down. So I think, Susan, that one of the things that people always want to know about is, how did you get started? How did you become in the space that you are? You know, the background story, if you will, of where you were then and where you are now. And
Yeah.
how you transitioned from that logo brand design to creating HazelMade. So why don't you tell us that first and kind of give us an insights into where you started at?
Yeah. So I graduated with a degree in graphic design, and I actually did not study illustration or business. So I graduated with that degree in design. I did the typical, I worked for a large publishing company, boutique design firms, in-house design, all kinds of things for a couple of years, and decided that wasn't feeling like quite the right fit. So I ended up leaving and starting my own branding firm. And we were mostly doing logos, websites, storytelling, and brand messaging. And at the time, just based on my community and who I was drawn to, I was working with a lot of what I now know the words to be as product-based businesses. I did not have that at the time, but that's who I was working with. They were small, family-run, often women-run companies, and they were making products. And they needed help telling their story, what was unique and different about their brand and their products, and really drawing that out. They were great makers, but they weren't great storytellers. So I ended up loving that process of branding and storytelling, and then slowly realized, it would be nice if I made a thing, because everything I made was sort of digital and it was also someone else's, which I did like, but I was wondering what it would be like to sort of mirror these folks and make something that was a product. And so I started HazelMade, and it was a natural transition for me to use my skills in design to create products, but I wanted to create something a little bit different. So I was doing this, teaching myself how to do illustration, and just slowly started building that over time. And it really grew from there.
That is so cool. I know a lot of artists. I know a lot of people in your space, if you will, who do artistic things and creative things. And I wish I was. Oh my gosh, I wish I was. But my gifts are in different things. Thank you, Lord. But I so admire those of you who can do that. When you say you just kind of started the designs and everything, I can just envision, because I remember the first time I saw your products. Oh my gosh, I mean, they just were so beautiful. I mean, just so pulled you. I know they pulled me in, as you remember me talking about them with you. But how do you say the design and the process? What's your day look like, or what's that process look like if you come up with a new design, or you're thinking about a new thing that you want to do? How's that all work?
Right. That's a great question. So my day is not typically filled with drawing and creating, although we are starting to really carve that time out in the schedule because it is important. And I've drifted away from that. I'm in year 11 of the business. So, as you start building, you drift a little from that and you start getting more into the business side of things. So we're trying to carve that time out together as a team. My process for creating is not thinking about the product specifically. So if I sit down to make a tea towel or make a birthday card or whatever it might be, it just won't work. It'll be awful. I also don't think about trends or things like that, because if I'm like, oh, everyone is making this thing, I should draw this thing too, I get really that imposter syndrome and all that stuff. So I actually love when I'm creating to completely digitally disconnect. So most recently, I actually had some other business related things that took me to New York City, which I love New York City, and spent an extra day or two there, just completely unplugged, phones on airplane mode, no laptop, no email, none of that stuff, no Pinterest or Instagram feeds, none of that, and then just really drawing what I was excited about. And at the time, I was really interested in poppies, the flower poppies. I had seen a painting, and I loved like the kind of wavy, frilly edges of it. And so I was interested in that shape. And I sort of get excited about a shape or a texture, and then I want to draw that. So I actually drew those poppies over the course of that trip. And then when I got home from that trip, decided to book the conference where we met, which happened to be in California. And I was like, oh, great, let's like take these sketches and actually make them into the products. So really the process is just about kind of isolating myself from external distractions and not thinking about making something specific. I really need to be able to just draw without the pressure of like, is this going to be something that's sellable? And does this have a great like trajectory or margins or things like that? Like, I just need to make something that I'm excited about and that I care about, and then the rest will happen from there.
It's kind of like when you're looking for something, it doesn't come. You have to just let yourself go free. Did you do anything with the buildings or the skyscrapers or anything in New York City?
Did I what?
Did you do anything with the buildings or the skyscrapers or anything? Did any of that come into your designs? I mean, I know they're buildings, but it just made me think about that.
No, but I'll often catch myself looking at like tile patterns or textures in stonework or things like that. So I really am interested in those flowing organic shapes, but that doesn't mean that I'm always like in a garden or in the produce section or in the floral section looking at that. I mean, that stuff is everywhere. I mean, even like the arches on your backdrop there, like that,
exactly,
something like that. So yeah, it can come from anywhere, really.
Yeah, for sure. Do you always carry with you your sketch stuff? I mean, is it pad paper? I mean,
I don't have anything special. I actually really love like a straight up old school Bic pen, like just like the regular old.
Wow. Okay.
And I love drawing on receipt paper, like the texture.
Receipt paper?
Yeah, like receipts from a store.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I do have a sketchbook. I have a lot of sketchbooks. People gift me really nice sketchbooks. There's nothing wrong with them. I think it's like like carrying that around all the time would like feel to me to like to do it, which maybe I need. Maybe I should be doing that.
Well, they make those little travel ones, those little small ones, that you can always envision myself. If I had that gift, I'd be carrying around my little pouch. But since I don't have that gift, I have my phone. That's mine where I do my things for sure. But so you live in Ohio and a college town. Do you have a daily habit or mindset or something that kind of gets you going as far as how you are in your business for success? I mean, is there anything that has helped you achieve that? You know how some people meditate, some people do different things. Do you have a routine or?
I do. So I try to go to the gym every morning. We have access to the university's gym, which is really quite nice. And so I do that in the mornings. I like to do that just to kind of get moving. And then I walk to work, which is nice. So I can walk to the studio from my house, which is really nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my day is not as organized as I would like it to be, but we're getting there as far as, this is when email time stops and those sorts of things. But I have a new operations manager, and Jackie has been really great, and we're making such huge steps towards getting that day a little bit more organized and having time blocked off for drawing, sketching, and thinking of new products that I want to add to the line.
That's great.
And then I also try to end my day with a walk, and that walk is outside. Um, I don't know, that just really helps my brain sort of trigger of like, okay, we're done. I worked from home for a really long time, so I've only been in this studio space for 3 or 4 years. And so most of my career, most of like the 20 years working, I worked from home. And so
Wow.
I had really clear like triggers that would say when the workday was starting and ending, since my working and living spaces were the same. So I'm really into those like keys that are like, okay, now we're getting revved up for the day, and now we're getting revved down. I mean, it's a little different now because I do leave my home space, but things like making your bed and going on a walk and then coming back to the house and starting the workday, like I just love that kind of stuff. I think it really helps.
I think the fact that you live in a community where you can walk to work and take a walk afterwards, that's a gift. I mean, that's a huge gift. I could see where just I think that I well coming from an educational background, it is so important for children to be outside. We live in the country, and our granddaughter and grandson can be outside. That is so important, and I think unfortunately too often that's not happening. And I think that's a detriment. I don't think that's healthy. I think people need to get out. And one of ours, Sadie Mae, she likes playing the mud, and we encourage her playing in the mud. I mean, they say there's real health benefits to that. So, yeah, for sure. Uh, Nate, one of the things I remember when I saw your booth and saw your things there, you had so many things that were usable in the home, and you kind of had a different twist on how you presented that, which I think was really cool. But
Mhm.
talk to us about, I remember the tea towels. I remember your tea towels, and they were like vintage almost, because I love collecting antiques and collectibles and stuff. So talk to us about the products you make that people then can use in the home, not just a note card that you're going to write a note on, but that, if you would.
Yeah, so every product that I design, I really like thinking about the function and the durability behind it. So a lot of what I make on the surface, it's like, oh, that's beautiful, things like that. But if we dive a little deeper into it, the amount of time that I spend actually designing the products, that is really just so interesting to me. So I'll talk about the tea towels because it's the easiest
Yeah.
example. So my towels are slightly larger than what we consider the industry standard in the United States. And those industry standards are just, I don't know where they came from. Somewhere along the way, someone came up with them. But we don't use that sizing. We actually cut straight from the loom. So when the fabric is woven on a loom and created into the fabric piece, instead of cutting the towel out of the middle of that and having waste thrown away, we just go straight up the middle and get our rectangles out of that. So it reduces the waste through the production process. It makes a slightly larger towel, but like nobody's mad about that.
Yeah.
Then I also, something that's really different about my towels is that I use a traditional drop design. So the towel is 28 by 29 inches, which is not this measurement, but this is what fits on the screen. And then my design is 14 by 16. So it's meant to fold in on itself, kind of like this one here. A display over an oven handle. So a drop design, it drops over the oven handle and displays, but it leaves a nice wide border that I don't cover edge to edge with ink. So it's more useful when you're drying stuff. And then I've also selected, like you said, that very traditional flour sack material.
Mhm.
So the flour sack material was actually used in the 20s, 30s for sacks of flour, the material used to make bread. And so this material is great for tea towels because it has a little diamond shaped weave. So that little diamond shaped basket that's woven into all of the fabric, it actually scoops up moisture. So it's super absorbent. It also creates a lint free environment. So when you dry
Wow.
like wine glasses or things, it's not going to leave all that like little linty stuff behind. And then the little diamond shape flexes in the opposite direction to release stains really well and dry quickly. So a lot of times, like when you get a towel and it doesn't like dry or just moves that water around, that's because it's made with shirting cottons, which is what we use for shirts, which is cheaper and meant to not absorb. But I use that traditional flour sack material. It's more expensive, but it's more useful. It's going to do the job that it was meant to do. And it's also super durable. I have some of my towels that are 10, 11 years old now, and they're still great. They're still totally fine. Yeah.
Well, that explains why I was so drawn to it, because I mean, like I said, I collect antiques and vintage things and everything, but there was something about those tea towels. I remember thinking, my God, these are like the old flour sacks, which then
Mhm.
women turned into tea towels. That was, the
Mhm.
sustainability of it all. But I would bet, Susan, that I could be wrong, but I would bet some of the big companies that do some of these things, I bet they haven't put the thought into it that you have. There may just be more on the design or what's going to sell. But what you explained about hanging over the stove, about the drying up the moisture, about the stains, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that is impressive. That is
I
impressive.
just like love all of that stuff. So we
Yeah.
also use a water-based ink, which is more expensive, but in the kitchen using a water-based ink, I'm not saying that you should use this as a hot pad, but the likelihood that something hot will get into touch one of the towels, my
Right.
inks won't melt or fuse. So a lot of times you'll get printed towels and it'll touch a pan or something and it will melt onto that pan. Mine won't do that. And then we also research we do a double heat set process. So a lot of times this is skipped or it's done just once, but we do a two-step heat set, which fuses that water-based ink with the fibers of the towel. So it won't fade, pick, peel. So you can wash and dry it normal. Like I don't want this to be a fussy thing. I am not
Right.
a fussy kind of person. I like strong, durable, sturdy things that are also beautiful. So the idea that you would have to hand wash a utilitarian device from the kitchen just like does not make sense to me.
Right. Well, and I also think that I can think of so many times I bought a really pretty towel, really pretty. It did not dry anything. I mean, you could put it on the stove, but you couldn't use it because it didn't dry anything. Now I know why. See, I didn't wasn't aware of the
So
reasoning behind that.
and I think it's like, so I don't think of these things necessarily, but when I first started, I couldn't order a ton of tea towels or greeting cards or whatever it might be. So I went to my local printers, makers, sewers and said, I want to do this thing. Will you help me? And pretty much everyone that I work with in year 11, I was working with in year 2, 3. And so we've built those relationships over time. But what's really fantastic is like the folks that sew my towels, I'm like, hey, why is it this size? Like, how much waste is happening? Or, the folks that are printing the towels, like, we talk about, like, I ask those questions and then they get excited because they are experts and they do want to
Right.
do things maybe differently. I mean, the way that I do things is not inexpensive. My margins are not fantastic, but I feel like I just want to put, obviously I'm a business and I need to make money. And there would be ways in which I can make loads more money, but I want to balance out making thoughtful, well designed pieces. I love the idea of like, the heirloom, the thing that you hand
Yeah.
down, the card that the paper is so beautiful and the penmanship on it was so great because the paper didn't smudge, that you keep that card forever. Like all of those things, it all plays into each other. I just don't want it to be disposable. It's no.
Right. Right. Well, that's a great point, because I remember when you and I were talking in Palm Springs, and you were talking about some of the eco-friendly materials that you use and some of the different products that are made. And you're in the Midwest, you're in Ohio, but the fact you could go and talk to local people, I think that's a lost art, tradition, whatever you want to call it. I think so much has been shipped overseas, and I personally, I think we're on a track to buy more made in USA. At least I hope so. But a lot of times people just don't know who to ask or what to do. But kudos to you that you reached out and found the people to talk to and ask. And I'm sure they appreciated the fact that you're asking for their insights, because maybe some other people hadn't done that. How did you find those people? I mean, like the people who sew do the sewing part, or do the towels, the art. How'd you find the people?
It was a lot of hard work and it's a lot of trial and error and it's a lot of pulling samples and building those relationships. I mean, it's just so much time, but to me,
Yeah.
it's really worth it. And it's just like going to this person that I know down the street and saying, this is what I want to do. And them saying, I don't really do that, but this person might do that. And it was a little bit of that, like kind of follow the train. I mean, when I was first starting, I really wanted to do this, but the greeting card isn't a great example because I did start with the greeting cards. and when I really only had enough money. I was self-funding this business, so I
Right.
didn't have a loan or a grant or anything like that. And so I had enough to print, 10 greeting cards. And it was just knocking on a bunch of doors until somebody said yes. And I was actually just talking to the family run company that prints my cards. And, now we're printing thousands of cards. And it was like, I remember sitting in his office, like, and saying, like, this is what I want to do. I really believe in it. And he said, he looked at the art and was like, I think maybe. And, he took a loss for a couple of years, I'm sure, of printing. Like, it's not lucrative for him to print like 10 off greeting cards. But,
Right.
here we are. If you do take a risk and see someone's willing to work hard and ask the right questions and do the work, I mean, I think you kind of have to prove that along the way too. But
But the fact he stayed with you, now you can talk about back in the day.
I
You
know.
guys can laugh about 10 cards and now thousands of cards.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
so do as far as your background, you came out of branding, marketing, and everything, then you started that business. Uh, how has that parlayed into what you do today with your bit with HazelMade? I mean, I know you've hired a COO and some different you're expanding your base, if you will, as far as people to support you. But how did that play into HazelMade's identity?
Well, I mean, I like to tell the story that I'm not trained through, college education in illustration, because I think it is important to articulate that it's okay to branch out and teach yourself something else. But I
Amen.
do rely heavily on my design degree. I mean, that was incredibly helpful. I mean, everyone has a different path, and I think there's many ways to do this, but I do today, still rely on that education that I got in design. Design comes into play with the products that I'm creating. I mean, even though I didn't know about illustration, the way in which I like lay out this design, like back here, that's design. That's the eye, the use of color that I have, like that's all still from that design education and background and all the work I had in that. As far as the business, I think it worked really well for me. And when I'm speaking with students, I often try to articulate this, that I worked for other people when I first graduated. And I liked explaining that because essentially what happened is I learned all that stuff that you can never learn in college.
Yeah.
I made mistakes on someone else's dime, which is really important. I mean, you're going to make mistakes when you first graduate. You don't know everything. And so I learned a lot about production and how stuff actually gets printed, because you don't actually print anything or make things in college. You create these like ideas and theories. So that was really important, that I did have about 4 or 5 years where I worked for other companies and learned about just those sorts of production things. And then using my comfort and my experience in design, starting to figure out how to run my own company and do the business side of things, while I had the stability of like the graphic design of the logos and the branding and the websites. Like I could do that stuff in my sleep at that point, and that allowed me the space to learn how to build the business because I was comfortable with the design. And
Right.
then that allowed me to go into HazelMade once I was comfortable with the business side of things, to start exploring, like, how do you make products? How do you deal with that overhead and inventory and creating the illustrations? I mean, that doesn't mean that I am literally learning something about business every second of every day. Like, there's
Amen.
something to learn all the time. But I think having that transitional point, like if I had just jumped into HazelMade straight out of college, I don't think I would have made it, because there would have been so much learning curve coming in every direction.
Right.
So sort of pacing yourself and letting yourself learn one thing at a time.
It's interesting you say that because I was watching some documentary the other day on Leonardo da Vinci, and I think they were talking about apprenticeships, the years that these artists did it. It wasn't like for, 6 months or a year, it was years. And he was too when he was young, an apprentice. And I think that's in some ways a lost art. Again, I think that's coming back. When I was a principal, we had vocational ed in schools, every trade you could think of, and then they took it out because they thought everybody should be going to college, which I think was a huge mistake. But I think some of that's coming back, and I think you learn from those people if you just give yourself. And now with the internet and technology, you can find so many of those things that back in the day, you couldn't. You had to hit the sidewalks to find those kinds of people. How many of the people that you do business with today did you start out with? What just up top base percent? Is it 30, 50, 70 that have stayed with you in the process?
As far as like the partners who are helping me
Yes.
print, make the paper, I think all of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
there's definitely been like, I dipped my toes in bandanas for a while, and that was a
Yeah.
separate sewing partner and printing partner. And then bandanas just didn't take off for us, and the margin just really wasn't there for us. Like we couldn't sustain it. So,
Right.
I mean, there's times where we'll drift away from a partner because it just wasn't, the product wasn't the right fit. But
Right.
I think I've been really lucky in the fact that I've never had to break up with anybody.
You never had to send the Dear John. So how many people are in Kent, Ohio? I mean, is it, I should know that. I should look at that.
I don't know. We should,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
guess
that'd be, I always ask people about the weather and the population, because to me, the weather tells you something. Like it's pouring down rain there today, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's only just been gotten warm. It's really humid here. So in the winter time, when it's cold, it's like extra cold. Like it just goes like straight through your clothes. It's super humid.
Yes.
And then, I mean, but it's pretty mild. Like it doesn't get like super hot or super cold. But yeah, it's raining today. It's finally spring here. It was like 70 today, which was a big deal.
Now, do you have the daffodils blooming and stuff? Are the flowers up for you? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. See, in Texas, and I love Texas. I was born here, but I love Texas. But we have really hot weather. But I tell people we have really good air conditioning, though. But from June, May or June to like October, it can be pretty hot. See, our daffodils and stuff, they're already gone. I mean, they bloomed several weeks ago. Our trees are all filled out right now, so it varies. But yeah, that would be cool. I love the seasons. I wish we had seasons, and you have seasons, right?
We have all four. Yep.
Yeah. See, and that's so much for the artistic. I think that with the designs and the different things you do. What's your favorite flower? Do you have a favorite flower?
So, people always think that I know the names of all the flowers, and I really don't. And that, that I'm a big time gardener, and I'm not. I am interested in like the shape information.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't really know, but we did just get, my husband's really into gardening, and that's who does all of that. And he just got me a magnolia tree for our wedding anniversary last year. And I will say that is beautiful. So
yeah, we have a lot of magnolias in the South, and we have a lot of magnolia trees. Now, don't plant it too close to the house. What a lot of people don't realize that, they plant them so close, they get huge. I mean, they get humongous.
Yeah. No, ours is in the backyard.
They'll live for 100 years, to say the least. Okay, so you do botanicals. Do you do any animals, or do you plan to do animals?
I don't. I mean, I have a couple of baby cards that have like there's a whale and there's a lion, but no, I'm mostly interested in like this is one of the new designs, the fruits and veggies. I have like, this is the most popular, the lemons. Yeah. Well, that's not true. I guess these are technically an animal. There's sardines.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I do fruits and veggies, and then like really like funky, like vintagey. I have a lot of like boxed and canned food. Like I have a whole suite that's like all about different boxed and canned food, as far as like canned tomatoes, boxed dried pasta.
Do you have spam? Do you have spam?
I don't. I am a vegetarian, so the sardines is like the closest that I've gotten. I have a breakfast tea towel that has all breakfast food, but there's no bacon on there, sausage or anything. So then I have like design sweets. So this is actually a magnolia. So there's a towel and then a matching notepad, and then there's cards and like mini notes and things. But and then this is kind of different too. So I do like household objects.
Uh-huh.
I have a ton of stuff in this vein of work I love when my mom gives me a thing and she has to tell that really long story about like
as moms do.
her aunt's sister gave it to her mother, and then, and I love that stuff. I am here for that. Like, I love that so much. And so I think that's why, so this like household object series came
Yes.
after I was helping my mom clear out her house. And like, literally, like, I mean, I after a few weeks of this, it did get a little old, but like, everything had a story. And I love that everything has a story, because everything has a reason for being there. And so I think that's what I want my products to also be like. People don't buy my strawberry tea towel because it's cute or sweet or any of those adjectives. They buy it because they come up and say, "Oh my gosh, my grandma would love this. We used to make strawberry jam all the time when we were little." And I know that that's like all corny and cliche to a lot
No,
of
it's
people, but
true.
like, I love that. And I love that someone buys my somewhat ordinary thing that's just a towel with strawberries. It's not earth shattering or mind blowing by any means, but they connect with that art and they connect with that story and they gift it, and it becomes so much bigger than a
Just
basic
strawberry.
strawberry tea towel that I made. That's not really that exciting until you attach that story and you gift it with that meaning. And then that person's like, "Oh, you remember that thing that we used to do together." I don't know. I just love all of that.
But I will say though, Susan, I remember when I first saw your products, there's something, the word that comes to mind is homey. I mean, that's probably not the right word, but there is something that pulls you in. I mean, I remember I had seen other displays and things, and yours pull me in the way you package it, the artwork and everything. So I think you draw people in who that's their by nature, they want to share stories, you know. Debbie here, Mariah, she's saying just placed her first order. You go, Debbie. Uh,
Yeah.
what fun. Love these designs. She want to know, were your printing partners smaller or large companies that will cater to small clienteles if needed? So your people took a chance on you kind of, I guess, when you first started, but do they continue to do that with smaller businesses? Am I making sense?
Yeah, so they're all small family-run companies
Okay. Okay.
that, and so it's not teatowels.com. And I think they will cater to small projects, absolutely, but it's definitely not, this, let's be honest here, this young woman, probably girl at the time, walks in and says, "I want to print 10 greeting cards." Like, that's not really like what they're doing, even though
Right.
they are smaller. Like, and it's just like, oh gosh, what are we doing here a little bit? And I don't blame them for that
Right.
reaction. Like,
Right. Right.
but I think so, like, they will do small jobs for sure, but like 10 cards when I was very first starting. And when I was first starting, I could only afford to order 20 tea towels at a time. Like, that was breaking the bank for me, 20 tea towels. Now we order 300 at a time of each
Right.
design. So,
But I
you know,
think your lesson there, or the message there though, is that when you first start out, you have to be willing to say it's okay just to do. I mean, you have to go pitch yourself. I only need 10 cards, but when you show the passion and what you want with your business, I think people are willing to take a chance on you. Because a lot of times everyone thinks, oh, well, you have to start out and be huge and order 300. Well, you don't. Start small and take the baby steps. I think you're showing people that.
yeah, no, and I think the distinction is like, I really did show that I was like determined, I was organized, I was clear on what I was trying to do. I was taking myself seriously. So
Mhm.
it was easier for them to do that as well. But yeah, even right now, like, if like we're about to order a new design in tea towels, I always do a sample. I'm in year 11 of HazelMade, and year like 20 something or other as being a designer on my own. I am still going to order a sample every single time, even though it's wicked expensive, but you just got to know. And then we'll order a small print run, because sometimes you're just like, oh, I wish this was a little, like, once you see it in that print run, you're gonna see like, oh, I wish this was like a little more to the left, and then when we folded it, it would be a better. I'm like really crazy about like, what is the crop? This is a bad example because it's just kind of a repeating, but
Not
how do
really.
you
It's beautiful.
how do you get just enough sardine information on the front of the towel, like the crop of it. Like that's something that I think like deeply about and care a lot about. So we want to run a little short print run, and then we'll order 300-400 sardines. But yeah, we still like ease into it. And I
Right.
think this pressure that you need to like order loads of something, and I just did napkins, cloth napkins for the first time. The margin on that is not what it needs to be. Anybody who knows anything about business would be like, do not do this. Like American made napkins, it's just not an idea. But I was like, I want these napkins. So I was like, let's just do a small print run. We don't need to get into 500 napkins. Like, let's just do 100. I get my napkins from my house, and other people loved them. They love the napkins, but
That they did.
it doesn't make sense as like a product right now, and that's okay too. Like to just do a thing because it's fun. Like it's a balance of like, I'm not in this because I want to get super rich. Like I need to support myself and my family and my team and all of that stuff. But like there's way easier ways to like make it,
I want to be an entrepreneur and just have all this. Yeah, no, you work 3 times more, 4 times more than you did in a job. Yeah, yeah.
So
But
I
you're
think you just like have to have fun while you're doing it too.
exactly.
Try things and like make a thing that maybe doesn't make sense on the spreadsheet. And I have the spreadsheet people and they keep me in check a little. We are trying to scale the business and get a little more button up on that. But I also just need to sometimes make a thing because it doesn't make sense on a spreadsheet, but I'm excited about it and we're gonna make some cloth napkins. So
You make some cloth
you're
napkins.
almost sold out. So if you want cloth napkins, you better run.
Oh, I'm gonna go look when I get off. Well, Mary Elizabeth, she had mentioned that she'd heard of something called Makers Row, where they connect people in the U.S. with U.S. manufacturers. She said she didn't know anyone who did that, but have you ever worked with anyone like that? I've heard of Makers Row as well. I've not looked into it, but I have heard of it. So I think people are getting more cognizant of that. How do you find people who want to work in the United States and stay home or whatever and do products like yours?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of that, but I'll definitely check it out. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm going to too. I'm gonna look at your napkins as well. I know you do work with the university as far as mentoring and things. You do a lot with younger people. Talk about, because you're our college town, and that's a big aspect of what you have there. So, what kinds of things do you do with the college or anything?
So we have occasional mentor positions here in the studio. So that is typically a great situation where you'll do really basic stuff in the studio. We don't, they're not trained or anything. So they're like the assistants to the studio assistants. And they usually work a certain set of number of hours, just a couple of hours, and then they earn one-on-one time with me, uh,
Oh,
which is a great opportunity for them to have me do a portfolio review or look at their resume. I do a lot of hiring in the creative field, so I understand how that works. Maybe they need help with their website. We've had some who are trying to build their own product-based businesses. So I do that occasionally when we have room in the schedule. I do like to do that. And that's completely free to them, other than earning a little time in the studio. But they learn while they're working in the studio too. So I've
right.
had a couple who have said, I actually got like more out of working in the studio than our meetings, because they weren't quite ready for our meetings. And I was like, okay,
Right.
well, whatever works. And then I do a lot of presenting. So I'll come into like both Kent State University and Akron University. And one of my goals is to get a little more into the Cleveland area as well. But I'll go and speak to the classes. A little less of like a resume talk and like, I did this and then I did that. And one of my topics that I like to speak on is the idea that it's like life is not this like cliff. Like I often speak with seniors in college, and this idea that like you graduate and then like everything is set.
Yeah.
Talking about the idea of like constantly expanding outward, but not thinking of like a linear sort of um, way of going through life. And I like to talk actually about the stuff that is the reverse resume. So if we sit here today, I'm going to tell you I worked for these fancy design firms and this fancy publishing firm, and then I ran my own design firm, and then I made HazelMade, and I give you the highlight reel, right? But like what people never talk about is in between there, I was unemployed. I worked at a coffee shop. I was horrible at that. I worked at a grocery store. I cleaned apartment buildings. I worked at a hotel cleaning rooms. Also not fun. So be nice to your hotel people. But like I did all of this stuff. And so this idea that you like graduate from college and you just, fly up this ladder, like there was a lot of up and down. And so to take that mystery out, because I spent a lot of time feeling like a failure when I was in between jobs working at, as housekeeping or as a barista or whatever.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then the other topic that I do a little more towards like grad students and graduate level classes is I talk about this idea that I'm actually in the process of trademarking, which I'm really excited about. And it's what I call the failure cushion. And so it's all of this stuff that we build around ourselves, specifically as women, to hide the failures. So when I started HazelMade, I still had my design clients and I was adjuncting at the university, and I had these like respectable jobs that if HazelMade had like failed, I could sort of slide into and no one would ever see that had failed, because it was like, so what I talk a lot about that and how that detracted from my ability to actually grow HazelMade. And in year 5, I went all in and I deflated the cushion and all of these things. So that's like my second kind of talking point but
that's important, because so often kids in college, they don't hear those things until they get out. And by that time, it's just harder. Yolanda was saying being an entrepreneur isn't always glamorous. And to your point, it's not always glamorous. And people only show the, Debbie's already looked at the napkins. They don't see all that. And we do people a disservice, I think, to not be honest and open about that, thinking everything's wonderful and everything's perfect, because then they judge it. And I think women even do a worse job of that. We're harder on ourselves for whatever reason. That's another topic, another day. But I think what you're saying is important, that what a gift that they get to do that. I mean, what a gift. Now I love the brick. You have the brick on this, well, your left side, I guess, there on the wall. You're in a historic building. Now tell us about that. I love, as I said, antiques, architecture, all that kind of stuff. I just love it. So tell us about your antique building that you're in. Number one, what made you choose the decision to do it? And what was the process of that, of how you came into that?
Yeah. So that is, so I was I was in my home, and we moved around a little bit, and HazelMade was always in the home. And then COVID hit. And before everyone went into lockdown, I was caring for my mom. She was living at her house, but I was, caring for her and over there a lot. And before lockdown happened, I was like, said to my husband, like, I think we should like go to the grocery store less, or like not have people come into the house to like help with HazelMade, like be around less people or something. And like 3 weeks later, like they announced like this lockdown, like, concept. And I was like, oh, that's what, okay.
That's what I was talking about.
Okay, best for me, I guess. And, then as COVID sort of went on, it was like, yeah, we can't really have people in the house. Like we needed that to be a controlled and sort of safe space. And so I started looking for a studio. I was looking everywhere, and everything was just so office-y. And I did this whole thing because I don't want to work in an office, like with the lighting and the carpet and all of that. So I was feeling a little kind of let down, and I met with the person who owns this building, and he was like, yeah, I'm redoing the building. There's this space on the first floor that'll be available. And I was like, oh no, I don't think that's right for me, but didn't really articulate why. And then a few months later, I did my like January newsletter that was like my vision and dream for the year. And I described how I wanted a studio space in downtown Kent, that I didn't want it to be a retail space or on the first floor, that I wanted it to be more of a working studio. So we're not a traditional shop.
Right.
That I wanted exposed brick and lots of windows, and described this space basically. And he responded to that newsletter. He was on my list for some reason.
Wow.
And he responded and said, I thought you wanted a retail store. That's why I was offering up the first floor space. He was like, I have this space on the second floor. And so I was actually able to be here through the for better or for worse, through the construction process and able to help like make some decisions. And I was downstairs in a temporary space for a while because construction was so slow during COVID with just
Yeah.
stuff. But so that's, that's how this came to be. I wanted to ideally be able to walk to work. So we only have one vehicle at our house. And so having the ability that we can both walk to work and we can share that car is sort of part of our lifestyle. And, um, we were going to be here for a while, so it made sense. And most importantly, it had lots of natural light and did not feel like an office. So
Right. Yeah. The light is so important to me. So important. Um,
yes.
but I'm intrigued by it. I think it's so cool when you can go into a town and there's all these old historic buildings and, they might not look good now, but when they're, freshened up, there's a woman, I don't know if you know Becky McCrae. I met her through Chris Brogan, and Becky, I think Becky lives in Oklahoma, but she goes across not just the country, but international, if you will. She helps small towns learn how they can build up and have, economy there and things for tourists or things for small business owners or whatever. So she would love your story of the building. I mean, not that where you are is, she goes into some really tiny places, but she's done an outstanding job of helping educate people on what's possible and thinking outside that box, if you will, to bring business owners together and citizens and et cetera. So have a lot of respect for Becky, but I always think how cool it'd be to, be on where I'm at. I'm outside Decatur, which is, then they have a square. They've got the huge courthouse and they've got a square, and it's fair. I mean, it's okay. It could always be better, obviously, but it's very, very well established for businesses and stuff. And the cool thing is they are redoing this redstone, humongous, beautiful courthouse. I cannot wait for it to be finished. I can't even fathom what it's going to look like, because it has to be 100 years old. I mean, it's old.
Will it be a courthouse still or an event space?
It'll still be the civic stuff in there. They might change it a little bit, but I'm anxious to see what it's going to look like, because they've already been in it at least a year and a half, maybe two. But it's one of those old traditional redstone, huge.
Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I think it's so cool that they're redoing it, not just tearing it down or trying to make it look fancy and new and that kind of stuff. They're keeping the historical perspective, if you will. So, Mary Elizabeth knows Becky McCrae. Yeah, Becky McCrae is a legend in small towns. She and Deb do a lot of work with small towns. So anyway, now you talked about a little bit before, but you talked about your COO and how you're kind of getting things buttoned up. Do you have plans you can share that you're moving in the future, some other things you're going to do with your products, or was it what you shared? Because you shared
No, I mean, so I had the 10-year anniversary. We're in year 11, and the 10-year anniversary was kind of tricky for me, because that was the first time that really everyone finally got on board of like, oh, this is like a legit business, even though it had been a legit business for a while. I mean, moving into the commercial studio space, was a tipping point for a lot of folks. But for a long time, it was like, oh, this crafty little business or this side hustle or whatever thing that we say often to women to diminish the work that they're doing. I dealt with that for a really long time. Moving into the commercial space helped kind of convince people that like what I was doing was legit, even though it just,
right.
It's the visual. And then the 10-year was like everyone finally got, anyone who was lingering and not on board was like, oh my gosh, 10 years, you made it. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. I love my last 10 years, but like, I cannot continue to push this thing up this hill in this way for another 10 years. Like, I am tired, y'all. Like, I need to figure something out. So what I love is, I am like extremely type A, and like I need everything to be like organized, but I'm also so willing to pivot, which always shocks me. Like I'm like, oh, I'm on board with this pivot. So we're doing a lot of pivoting right now, and like,
Right.
what is our kind of digging our heels into like the guts of the business a little more of like, what is the brand strategy? Where are the other places? I mean, meeting you and getting all fired up about LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn was something that I was not utilizing until I chatted with you and then a couple of other folks. It was like, okay, there's a lot we can be doing there. So I think brand strategy and what other venues, digitally or in person, can we be showing up? I just don't want to keep doing the same thing we've been doing,
Right.
because it's not helping us get to that next level of growth. And it's also not helping create a sustainable business. And I've already done it. So like, what's next?
Yeah. What's next?
So the Alt Summit was the first step of that, of like, our the Super Bowl in my world is going to New York and exhibiting at the trade shows.
Mhm.
And I've done that now like 4 or 5 times, and the in-person trade shows are sort of dying out. So Alt Summit, the conference we met at, was the first of 5 places that I'll be going this year that are completely different venues. They're not trade shows. So this was a conference for for women entrepreneurs, and then going into a different location that I've never been. So I personally been to California, but HazelMade's never been to California. So my goal for this year is 5 new locations, new states, and new venues. And that is gonna, I think, re-energize the business a lot. We're also, I'm really excited to have someone like Jackie on the team who's deep in the numbers and the reports and the spreadsheets and the systems. Like, I love all of that stuff, but I don't know how to do it. I don't have time to figure it out. I kind of don't want to know. So it's nice to have like the other side of the brain showing up too. And so I think that's really exciting to kind of get that stuff figured out a little bit more. And I think kind of flip the product line on its head. What don't I care about anymore? What can we let go? What's not working that I love, but it needs to go? And then, Jackie's asking these great questions of like, what have you always dreamed of making that you've never made? Like, let's make that. And Jackie's really great at helping me set goals and like, what are the steps that you use to get to that goal, which it's a little embarrassing that I haven't quite been doing that formally, but that's really exciting too, to just like, this is what I want to do now. What are the steps that we use to get there? So
I think you inspired Miss Mary Elizabeth here, because she says, confession time. I have a brand on hold called Charred and Stripes. I dream of fabrics with beautiful foods painted on them. In other words, I'm planting the seed of brand collaborations.
Yeah.
Good for you, girl. Good for you. Well, it's the reason that, of course, anyone who knows me knows I'm such an advocate for LinkedIn, because it's such a powerful platform. But so many, well, first of all, creatives, they're just now coming onto the sphere. But you and I talked about, you do a lot with corporate clients, and you're moving more into that. And that's how conversation came
up. Mention this.
Where your people are. They're on LinkedIn. So
okay, Debbie, how did I forget? I would have gotten in trouble. Jackie would have gotten me for this one. I can't believe I forgot. I'm so excited about this. So
okay, Jackie. Okay, good.
This was on my list too. So about 2-3 years ago, I was approached by a wealth management firm, and they said, "Hey, do you do corporate gifting?" And in true HazelMade fashion, I said yes, and then went back to the office and figure it out. So I'll speed up here because I know we're almost out of time.
We're okay. We're good.
Okay. Well, so I worked with them, and they did exclusively HazelMade products. I helped put together these gift set for them, package them, all the beautiful details, like layers of details. I loved everything. Worked within their budget. They said, this is how much it needs to be. We figured that out. And then I have, I like to say that I have a master's degree in shipping in the post office. Well, we don't use the post office anymore. We use UPS. But anyways, so I took on the fulfillment for them, which is just such a pain in the neck, but like, I totally know how to do that. We blind shipped it for them, so it looked like it was coming straight from their office, but I took care of everything, tracked every package. They loved it. So the next year I came to them and said, "Hey, you guys want to do this again?" And they were like, "Would love to. That was great, but we do something different every year." And I was like, "Oh no, that was a great project for my business. What am I going to do?" So I came back to them and said, "Let me leverage my community. I've been in this community of wholesalers and independent brands, so I can put together gift sets that are with like-minded to HazelMade. So the same brand values that HazelMade represents, these folks agree with, and they're doing it with their own products. So I'm curating these gift sets now with some HazelMade, if that makes sense, but with these other small family, often women run. I would say about 98% of the products that I'm curating are women run companies, and they're these gift sets. So This year we're launching a catalog that gives people a starting point. So there's 5 or 6 gift sets that are, if you just want to pick a thing and like keep it super simple, I've made 5 or 6 like knockout sets that you can just pick from. You can also like a la carte it or say, I don't see what I want here. This is my vision. Go find it. And we'll do that too. And then we do everything like, do you want a handwritten note in there? We'll handwrite it for you, or we'll send them to your office ahead of time for you all to sign it. I mean, whatever it is that they want to do, we put all those details together, and then we can make it as, you can be involved as little as you want or as much as you want, and then we ship all of that and fulfill it. And I just love the project because corporate gifts are often just lack that story. They lack that depth. And so we share the brand stories really briefly with a little card in there so folks know that they're getting something really thoughtful and special. And then I encourage folks to do, if they're doing corporate like holiday gifting, to do it around Thanksgiving time so that we don't get involved in like Christmas versus Hanukkah, and then we don't get messed up in like the chaos of that season. So we do it at the top of the season. And then what's really great about that is that the clients receive these great objects and they say, great, let me just go over to this person's website and buy, a bunch of chai tea mix or hand carved spoons or whatever it might be. And so it like further supports these brands that, we're all hurting right now. And so it's really nice to have that kind of ripple out. I love this project. I love
so cool.
Yeah, like curating these sets. I spend way too much time on it, but I love it so much.
Yeah. I think, and it also goes back to what we were all talking about before, and that people want community. They want a story. They want authenticity. They want, in some ways, back in the day, what used to be there, where you took something to someone's home or something. We've gotten away from that because we do so much big box and Amazon, and I'm guilty too, forgive me, Lord. But I think they want to get back to that. And I think it's huge. So I would have been so disappointed had you not shared that, but you're on LinkedIn. That's where your people are.
Yeah, we should have started there anyway.
Should have. Well, there's so many that come. I read today Chipotle's doing some stuff. Whataburger's done some stuff with Levi. All these different big brands are doing some things. So you should look at some of that. And there's a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn where people are showing how they're collaborating and what they're doing some fun stuff with, because that's right up your alley. I mean, that's what you do. But I think that's a lesson for everybody watching this, is what else can you move into? You started with one thing, but you just keep evolving and moving forward. So again, kudos to you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to make sure that you're doing stuff that you care about. Like,
right.
We had to ask the question, is this corporate gifting is that another failure cushion? And I thought about it and I was like, no, I love doing this. I'm passionate about it. It is not a distraction. It's not just another revenue stream. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So as long as you feel passionate and excited about it, then it makes it worth it. Because if that's the whole point of this thing.
Well, and too often you get gifts that are just, I spoke for group Lisa K's on here, and I got this really cool little Service Master that you can clean your computer with. But so often you get gifts and you get swag and you get things that you can't use. I can use this. Thank you, Mr. because it's applicable. So for you to do that for corporate gifts to be something that people can use and then share and then buy from, they then will meet people through your curation, if you will, that they might not have known. They might not know about the spoons. They might not know about the tea, but because they're in that gift that you're making, you're, spreading like you said, the ripple effect. That's the ripple effect. What have I not asked you? I have the website going across the bottom there so people can go in, and I can't wait when I get off to go look at the napkins. Debbie's already been cheating. She's been looking at all that good stuff. And Debbie's like we always say we're sisters. There's so much that we are alike in. We like the same kinds of things. So I encourage people to go to your website and look at that and sign up to get your newsletter and get that information. So what have I not asked you that you wanted to share besides that?
Well, I mean, I would say, I know, right? Oof, glad we caught that one. I would say check out the newsletter. You can unsubscribe at any time. I don't get an alert. I don't look at it. Nobody needs to know about that. So you can leave whenever you want, but we do something really different with our newsletter as well. I never use it as it's not like a Old Navy where we're like blasting out a coupon code every 5 minutes. We use it as a place to create community and storytelling, to talk about some difficult things. One of our best sellers is, or best sellers, one of our best newsletters that we did, that got the most response is 3 easy tips on how to write a sympathy card. So like we always ask ourselves before any newsletter, like, is this a useful thing that people will want to understand? Today, a newsletter just landed, that was about the history of letter writing and how women were using that in sort of an underground way and creating their own language, and how they sort of wrote that history and wrote and drove that path for that as well. So the newsletter is definitely something that I'm really proud of. We get so many replies back about it. I love the community that happens. Like again, the conversation isn't just me sending out the newsletter. It's like the replies that are back, and I'm responding to all of those, and we're having conversations and getting new ideas. So I would say definitely sign up for that. You can follow on Instagram. We do Instagram. We're on TikTok. LinkedIn. I got to build my LinkedIn, right. So there's plenty of ways to connect. And I guess don't be afraid to shoot me an email or a message or anything like that. And if you have an idea of how I could grow or change or be different, or if there's something that you need help with that I can share or repost or answer a question, like I'm very much about that, keeping that conversation open. So reach
That
out.
is so awesome. So awesome. Well, everyone on here, if you're not connected with each other, make sure that you connect with everyone that you see here, but also obviously with Susan and myself. I think everyone I've seen so far I'm connected with, but if you're not, make sure that you do that, because it's all about those conversations and everything that we can have. And that's what I love about technology, and I love about social platforms. There's a lot of negativity out there, but we can show that it doesn't have to be that way. It can be the positive. It can be the sharing. It can be, to Lisa Kay's point, the ripple effect is, as you've all said. And I think you really shared some cool things with people today. And I think you've been a real inspiration. And I have a feeling that in just a few years, you're going to be one of those really big names, because you're already in almost 40 states. You're in almost 400 stores across the country. Do you have does Jackie have a goal of which number she wants you in?
Well, it's 600.
600.
And so we are setting those goals right now, and we're going after them. I don't have the number exactly, but we are actually, for the first time ever, like really being clear about what those goals are. And when I say we, I mean Jackie and I attend the meetings. Yeah. But it's really is wonderful to have those goals. And I think it's about slow and steady growth, and it's also about intentional growth. So I'm very clear about the people that I want to partner with, and I want to make sure that we share the same like values and visions. Right. And so I'm not necessarily interested in saying yes to everything, but also at the same time, we do want to make sure that we're growing those partnerships. So if there is a local shop in your neighborhood that you love shopping at, that you think HazelMade would vibe well, the best way for me to grow is for you to go in and say, hey, do you know about HazelMade? Because I can email them and send them postcards all day long. But you saying, I would love to buy these towels from this store, that's the easiest way for me to grow.
Exactly.
So
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And when you get your products, Debbie and whomever, take pictures of those products and post those pictures, because that really makes a difference, because then people see it. And I think that's one of the best gifts of social, is that we can share information. I mean, word of mouth now is truly digital, and we're able to do that when we couldn't before. So I'm so appreciative and thankful that everyone came today and listened to you, and you have all these kudos. I'm going to ask Susan if she'll put in the five new locations that you're going to this year, the new shows. We'll see if we can put those in the notes later. Yes. If it's something that we can share that you can, maybe, you never know, you might live near those places. So, but I appreciate everyone being here, especially you, Susan. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. This was so fantastic. I loved it. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, live or recorded. And be sure and reach out and connect. And everyone have a blessed day. Thank you, y'all, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.